The Harrison Ranch was alive that evening, its sprawling acres glowing with strings of lanterns draped across the terraces and trees. Guests arrived in clusters, their laughter carried on the soft Carolina breeze. Angel adjusted her plain blouse and ankle-length skirt as she trailed behind her sister Priscilla, whose designer dress shimmered like the moonlight itself. Angel never felt more invisible than when she stood next to her sister. The two were cut from the same family, but Priscilla glowed while Angel blended into the background. She clutched her notebook-like clutch bag close, as if it were a shield against the brilliance of everyone else at the party. "Stop walking like you're heading to church," Priscilla whispered sharply, her smile still dazzling for the crowd. "You're young, Angel. Act like it." Angel swallowed a sigh. She wasn't here to act like anything. She was here because Priscilla insisted, and because her father thought it would be good for her to be social. But deep down, Angel knew the real reason she felt restless tonight. Alex Harrison. He would be here. He had to be. The thought of seeing him again both thrilled and terrified her. For years, Angel had nursed a quiet love for Alex, the older Harrison brother with the steady hands and the quiet eyes that seemed to see too much. He was everything she wasn't: confident, capable, admired. And while she kept her feelings buried, she feared one day it would be too late. As the night wore on, Angel lingered at the edges of the terrace, pretending to sip punch, while Priscilla swept through the crowd like royalty, laughing too loudly at Seth Harrison's jokes. Seth had only just returned from years away in medical school, and the whole town seemed eager to welcome him. Angel could already tell her sister's sights were fixed on him. Then a familiar presence brushed the edge of her awareness. She turned, and there he was, Alex Harrison, tall and composed, his broad shoulders framed by a simple suit. He looked older than the last time she'd seen him, more rugged somehow, but his smile was exactly as she remembered, rare, thoughtful, and devastating. Their eyes met for a fleeting second. Angel's breath caught. The rest of the party fell away. And then, as if it had never happened, he turned to greet another guest. Angel's heart twisted. Would she always be just the girl in the shadows? Or would she finally find the courage to step into the light? The gala spilled across the Harrison terrace like a low, glittering tide, music drifting from a live band, the pool mirroring strings of light, the smell of grilled beef and sweet rolls riding the breeze. Angel kept to the edges, where shadows offered cover and conversation ran thin. Every time she caught a glimpse of Alex, laughing with a ranch hand, leaning in to hear an older neighbor, her chest tightened with the same old ache. She had survived this feeling for years by refusing to feed it. Tonight it fed itself. A burst of applause erupted near the steps as B drew Seth in for a proud, motherly hug. He looked leaner than Angel remembered, an easy calm in his eyes that medicine had not worn down. Priscilla floated toward him like a bright intention, a smile set to stun. Angel drifted the other way toward the side yard where the barn lights glowed and the music softened to a hum. The barn held a different kind of party, the snuffling of horses, the quiet clink of tack, the sweetness of alfalfa. Angel pressed her palm to a stall door, let the mare's breath fog her fingers and felt her pulse settle. This she understood. Creatures who did not judge, work that did not require small talk. She could live her whole life in useful silence. Footsteps scuffed behind her. "I didn't think the barn counted as the main event," Alex said, voice low and amused. Angel turned. The years had only sharpened him. Sun-browned skin, a line near his eyes that suggested he smiled when people weren't looking, shoulders that said the ranch did not carry him. He carried it. In the light spill from the doorway he looked both familiar and brand new. "I like the company," she said, gesturing to the stalls. "They don't ask me if I've tried the canapes." He smiled slow. "I'll take that as a warning not to ask." A silence that felt oddly full settled between them. Angel reached for words and found instead, a memory, one that always arrived uninvited. 16, wet from the pool, climbing the ladder, and Alex standing there, sun on his bare shoulders, looking at her as if she were not invisible at all. She had blushed so hard her ears burned for an hour. He hadn't said much then either. He had only looked. "Alex, there you are." The voice sliced the moment. A man in a pale jacket approached with Angel's father in tow. "Angel, meet Trevor Hale. The Hales run the feed co-op and sit on half the town boards. Trevor's been wanting to say hello." Trevor's handshake was firm, his grin practiced. "Your father tells me you're smart as a whip, miss." "Angela, is it?" "He's promised us dinner next Thursday. Thought we could talk about your plans. B says the ranch always needs more good minds around it." Angel felt the ground shift. "Dinner. Promised." Her father smiled at her, the way men smile when they have arranged something sensible and expect gratitude to follow. Alex's expression smoothed into politeness, and if there was the faintest stiffening in his shoulders, she told herself she imagined it. Sure, she said because no was bigger than her lungs at the moment. Thursday. Trevor tipped 2 fingers from his brow and moved off with her father. The air he left behind was too warm. You don't have to say yes to everything, Alex said softly. Angel's laugh came out thinner than she meant. I'm good at saying yes to the right things. Eventually. Their eyes held until a burst of laughter erupted from the terrace and someone called Alex's name. He hesitated, then nodded toward the house. Come back up when you're ready. Be'll be looking for you. When he disappeared into the lantern glow, Angel stood alone with the horses and the taste of a decision she had not made, the old fear settling in beside it, that it would be too late by the time she found the courage to speak. Morning peeled the night off the Blue Ridge like a quiet miracle. Angel woke to birdsong and the soft ache of wanting. She spent an hour pretending the dinner invitation did not exist and another deciding she should at least tell her father she wasn't a parcel to be delivered. Before either plan took shape, she got Bea's text. Could you drop by the barn with those reference books you mentioned? Alex is checking calves. Would love your company, sweetheart. Angel brought the books and stayed for the work. Beef calves bawled in the small pen, long lashes framing newborn eyes. Alex moved with deliberate efficiency, checking ears and eyes, noting weights, recording sire lines, a rhythm of competence that made the world feel less complicated. One's hanging back, Angel said, pointing to a stubborn little bull calf tucked against the fence. Caught it, Alex answered, already there. Might just be slow to take the bottle. Angel crouched, kept her movements small. Hey little prince, she murmured, angling the nipple toward the calf's mouth. You don't have to rush. Small sips count too. The calf latched, wary but willing. Alex watched Angel watch the calf, something unguarded in his face. You're good at this, he said. I read too much and talk too little, she replied without looking up. Animals don't seem to mind. People who talk less usually say more when they finally speak, he said. I've noticed. She glanced at him, startled by the weight behind the words. He stood easy, but his gaze was direct, the kind that asked for honesty by offering it first. By late morning, the sun had warmed the corrals and Angel's muscles ached in the clean way of work well done. Bea arrived with lemonade and gossip. Priscilla, it seemed, had dazzled half the terrace and Seth had managed to disappear with the other half, accepting welcome home handshakes like a man slipping through rain. And your father, Bea added, tone carefully light, seems keen on Trevor reintroducing himself. Angel stared into her cup. So I heard. You're allowed to want something different, you know, Bea said gently. Your father loves you in the way men sometimes do, with plans and fences. Love can be smarter than that. Alex busied himself with a halter that didn't need fixing. Angel felt his attention like a steady warmth at her back. She wished, wildly, that she could ask for 10 minutes in a room where no one expected anything and everything could be said. Instead, she helped Alex walk a skittish heifer around the ring and pretended the ground beneath her feet was as dependable as his hand on the lead rope. When they paused, he said, About last night, it wasn't my business. But if you want to say no to that dinner and you want someone in your corner, I'm here. Angel swallowed. There are rumors, you know, that you're considering a business arrangement with the Pierces. Caroline. Alex's mouth tipped, not quite a smile. There are always rumors when 2 ranches share a fence line and a feed supplier. I like Caroline. As a friend. She likes her life in town. We make more sense at a distance. The relief that moved through Angel was dangerous and bright. She tucked it away, careful as a match in wind. Thank you for the books, he said, nodding to the stack. And for the help. Anytime, she answered, surprised to find she meant it. The ranch could use more good minds, Bea had said. Angel wondered for the first time if that might include hers. By Thursday afternoon, clouds gathered like bad news over the ridgeline. Angel stared at the dress Priscilla laid on her bed, a soft blue thing that made her feel like someone else, and told herself she could survive dinner by listening more than she spoke. Trevor would talk about supply chains and margins. Her father would beam. She would nod and remember to breathe. She never made it to town. The storm broke fast and mean, wind scything across the pasture, thunder slamming into the valley. Angel's phone exploded with texts. Bea calling for help, a ranch hand reporting down fencing on the south side, cattle pushing the line. Priscilla looked at her heels, then at Angel's boots. Go, she said softly, surprising them both. I'll tell Dad. And Angel? Do what you're good at. The road to the Harrison ranch ran silver with rain. Angel drove like a prayer, windshield wipers thrashing, heart set on the work ahead. When she skidded into the yard, Alex was already mounting up, slicker plastered to his shoulders, jaw set. He didn't waste seconds on surprise. "South fence," he called, tossing her a coil of wire. "We'll push them off the brake and mend as we go." They moved like they'd trained together, she on the four-wheeler, him on a bay gelding that cut through mud like it owned the place. Lightning stitched the sky. Cattle bellowed, massing into a nervous river. Angel flanked, voice steady, turning bodies with the machine's presence while Alex and a ranch hand on the far side swung wide to funnel the herd back uphill. At the brake, wire gaped like torn skin. Angel killed the engine and dropped to her knees in the muck. She had mended fences with her father since she could lift a post. Hands remembered what fear tried to erase. She anchored, pulled, clipped, her breath counting the seconds between flashes. "You're bleeding," Alex said, appearing at her shoulder with an armful of staples. Rain skeined off the brim of his hat. Blood trickled from a scrape she hadn't felt. He wiped it with the back of his wrist. "So are you," she shot back, and they grinned at each other like lunatics. When the last staple bit home, the three of them pushed the final stragglers through. The herd settled into a dark, grumbling mass, ears flicking, eyes catching light. Relief left Angel shaking, a tremor she only noticed when Alex's hand closed around her elbow. "Come out of the weather," he said, guiding her toward the tack room. "Just for a minute." The tack room was warm with the smell of leather and liniment, rain drumming overhead. Angel sat on a feed bin and watched water drip from the edge of his hat. The power flickered once, then steadied. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I did," she answered. "For them. For you. For me, maybe." He took off his hat, raked a hand through wet hair, and met her eyes with a steadiness that made the world narrow to two people and a choice. "I've spent a long time learning how not to want anything I can't work for," he said. "This ranch taught me that. But it didn't teach me how to say something plain when it matters." Angel lifted her chin. "Say it plain then." He opened his mouth and the door thumped wide. B.A.'s silhouette filled it, breathless. "Angel, honey, your father. He's at the house. He was worried when you didn't show for dinner and came looking. He and Trevor got turned around in the storm. They're fine, but he's shaken. He wants you." The moment stretched, then folded itself smaller, tucking away like a letter not yet mailed. Angel stood. Alex's hand fell from her arm. "Go," he said. "We'll finish up here." She ran through the rain with the taste of almost still on her tongue and a certainty forming beneath her fear. When the weather passed, she would have to speak so the quiet didn't decide for her. Her father sat on B.A.'s sofa like a man who had misplaced his map. Mud streaked his cuffs. Trevor hovered near the fireplace, cheeks ruddy, good humor frayed to the threads. The storm had shrunk to a grumble against the windows, a tired God finding somewhere else to roar. "I was worried," her father said, then winced as if the words were unfamiliar in his mouth. "I heard the siren on the highway and, well, I made a mess of it." "You okay?" "I'm fine," Angel said, sinking to the coffee table edge. "The fences aren't. But they will be." He nodded, eyes running over her scraped knuckles, the wet plastered strands of hair. "You're your mother's girl," he murmured. She could fix anything with baling wire and a prayer. Trevor cleared his throat. "We can reschedule dinner," he offered, relief mixing with politeness. "Truth told, I'm not much good in a storm." Angel took a breath that felt like standing at the edge of her life. "Thank you, Trevor. You're kind. But I shouldn't have said yes at all." Her father blinked. "Angel?" She held his gaze. "I know you want something steady for me. Something safe. But saying yes to a life because it's easy to explain is just another kind of hiding. I have things I want to try. Things I might be good at. On the ranch." She glanced toward the window where a saddle's silhouette cut the light. "With the Harrisons. With B.A.'s projects. With whoever needs hands that can learn." Silence settled, the honest kind that comes before a weather change. Her father rubbed his jaw, then huffed a short laugh that sounded like surrender coming to its senses. "Your mother used to tell me I loved you with fences," he said. "I thought I was building you a pasture. Maybe I was building a pen." He reached for her hand, rough palm covering hers. "You get to choose, Angel. Even if it scares me." Trevor stood relieved in game. "I'll tell my folks your father raised a daughter who knows her own mind," he said, tipping his head. "They'll like that better than a story about margins anyway." After he left, Angel stepped into the rain-washed night. The storm had scrubbed the sky clean, stars burned like honest answers. She found Alex in the yard, coiling rope, jaw set in the way of a man trying not to hope too loudly. "How's your dad?" he asked. "Trying a new thing," she said. letting me choose. They stood under the eaves, the drip of water counting seconds. Angel felt words gather, brave and simple. I have been in love with you so long I learned to be quiet in new ways, she said. I don't want quiet to do my choosing anymore. Alex's inhale was sharp, then steady. His hands were empty now, rope hung neatly on its peg. Angel, he said, and her name sounded like a place he'd been saving. I almost said it earlier. I almost said it the week you climbed out of the pool and couldn't look at me for a month. I'm not good at almost. He stepped closer but slowly, like approaching a skittish colt, letting her close the last of the distance. She did because this was her choosing too. When his palm found the line of her jaw, it was a touch that asked, not a claim that took. She answered by lifting her face, and the kiss that followed was not a flourish or a promise of fireworks. It was a beginning that knew itself, steady and sure as fence posts set true. Behind them, the house light framed B, and a beat later, Seth and Priscilla. Seth's hand brushed Priscilla's elbow as he told her something that made her blink hard and then laugh, a softer sound than Angel was used to hearing from her sister. There was more than one kind of growing up happening on that porch. Weeks later, the ranch found its summer rhythm again. Seth opened a small clinic in town 2 days a week. Priscilla surprised everyone by organizing vaccination drives and reading to kids in the waiting room, her slinky dresses traded occasionally for a denim jacket and boots that remembered mud. Angel split her time between BA's office, the calving pens, and a small side project, tracking bloodlines and weights, building a database that made the Santa Gertrudis herd more than numbers on a ledger. On a late afternoon when the light leaned long across the pasture, Alex rode up beside her where she stood at the fence with a clipboard. You still good at saying yes to the right things? He asked, eyes smiling. Angel touched the brim of his hat, the old shyness now a familiar pet she could pat and set down. Learning, she said. Choosing. He swung down, looped the reins, and took her free hand. Me too. The wind moved through the grass. Cattle flicked their tails. Somewhere beyond the fields, the Blue Ridge waited like a steady backdrop to a story no longer afraid of its own voice. Angel lifted her face to the day, to the man at her side, to the work that made sense, and let herself belong to the life she had chosen.